Today we're going to learn about the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula allows us to solve any quadratic equation, whereas before we could use factoring, we could use square roots. The quadratic formula allows you to solve any quadratic equation. It is important that you have it in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So you want your quadratic equation to be in standard form. You want the a value to be positive, and you want the equation to equal 0. And the quadratic formula is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And there are many ways to remember this song. One popular way to remember this song is using the tune Pop Goes the Weasel. So mind my early, I'm sorry about my early morning singing voice, but whatever. X equals opposite of b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There, that's the only time I'll ever do that. Okay, I call this the opposite of b because it's not just negative b. If your b value is positive, you'd put in the negative. If your b value is negative, you'd put in the positive. And you might notice opposite of b over 2a from when we graphed quadratic equations. So the opposite of b over 2a is in this formula, but there's just a little bit more. Plus or minus the square root of your b value squared minus 4 times a times c. Notice all of that is underneath the square root. And this fraction bar, this division bar, extends across the whole thing to show that the opposite of b is being divided by 2a and the square root is being divided by 2a. So here's how we use this. First thing you need to do is figure out what a, b, and c are. So in this problem, a is 5. A is always the number in front of x squared. B is the number in front of the x, 3. And c is the constant by itself, the negative 1. So x equals the opposite of b, so negative 3, plus or minus the square root. And notice I do a kind of a long square root. Then it says b squared minus 4ac. So b squared, that'd be 3 squared minus 4 times our a value, 5, times our c value of negative 1. All over, make sure that division bar extends across the whole thing, 2 times our a value. Now we need to start breaking this down. So 3 squared, we can do that pretty easily. 3 squared is 9. But what I would do in here is put parentheses around whatever you're squaring and plug that whole thing in your calculator. So if you grab your calculator and do parentheses 3, close your parentheses, squared, minus 4 times 5 times negative 1, you should get 45. So we have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 45 over 2 times 5 is 10. Now we need to simplify the square root of 45. So I'm going to take the square root of 45 over here and think about what could we break the square root of 45 into. We can break it into the perfect square 9 times 5. So the square root of 9 times the square root of 5. The square root of 9 is the whole number 3. So the square root of 45 is going to become 3 times the square root of 5. So negative 3 plus or minus 3 times the square root of 5 all over 10. This does produce two solutions. If you actually wanted the decimal approximations, you could do negative 3 plus 3 times the square root of 5 divided by 10, and then negative 3 minus 3 times the square root of 5 divided by 10. All right, number 2. Our a value is 6, our b value is negative 8, and our c value is 3. I would like you to pause the video and try to put this in the quadratic formula by yourself, and then play the video and we'll see how you did. So according to the formula, x equals the opposite of b. Notice our b value is negative, so we're going to put in positive 8 plus or minus the square root of b squared. Because it's a negative 8, I'm definitely putting parentheses around it, minus 4 times our a value, 6, times our c value, 3, all over 2 times our a value of 6. So the stuff under the square root, the stuff under the radical, I'm just going to plug that into my calculator. Make sure you use parentheses if you're squaring a negative number, because think about that. When you square a number, you should end up with a positive. So negative 8 squared should be positive 64. And if you want to make sure that you don't do a calculator error, you might want to do that part in your head and put that number into your calculator and then do minus 4 times 6 times 3. So I would punch in 64 minus 4 times 6 times 3. But if you want to do negative 8 squared, just please put parentheses around it so you don't make mistakes. After you punch that into your calculator, you should get 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 over 12. So, square root of negative 8. We know how to simplify that. We can break it into the square root of negative 1, the square root of 4, the square root of 2. The square root of negative 1 is I, the square root of 4 is 2, so this becomes 2i times the square root of 2. So if we go back here, x equals 8, oh goodness, let's fix that. Eight plus or minus, and instead of the square root of negative 8, we now are going to use 2i times the square root of 2 all over 12. Now take a look at this answer and the previous answer. You do want to look at the whole number or the integer pieces of this. So the negative 3, the 3, and the 10, if those have anything in common, you could simplify it. So take a look at this one. We've got 8, 2, and 12. Those all have 2 in common. So we can simplify this by canceling out 2 from each of those pieces. It's kind of like we're dividing everything by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and you don't have to write that 1. You can just write I times the square root of 2. And 12 divided by 2 is 6. So that would be our final answer. If you had the green answer, you're not wrong. It's just not a completely correct answer because it hasn't been fully simplified. Okay, turn to the next page and let's continue with these notes. The next one is negative 4x squared minus 9x minus 3 equals 0. And if you remember from the front side, it's really best if a is positive. It's going to make your life a lot easier if a is positive. So I'm basically going to divide everything by negative 1, or you could think of it as just changing everything to the opposite. We could also think of it as adding 4x squared to both sides, adding adding 9x to both sides, and adding 3 to both sides, just to kind of flip it around. So this will be 4x squared plus 9x plus 3 equals 0. Having your x squared or having your a value be positive makes everything easier. And once we have this done, I'm going to cross this other thing out so it doesn't confuse us. So our a value is 4, our b value is 9, and our c value is 3. Now, I wrote the quadratic formula on the board so that you have it in front of you. You don't technically have to memorize it, but it will make your life easier if you have it memorized, simply because you'll know what goes where. So x equals the opposite of b, negative 9, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 9 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 3. all over 2 times a, and remember our a value is 4. So -9 plus or minus the square root. In your calculator, do 9 squared minus 4 times 4 times 3. Hopefully you get 33 all over 8. Okay, now pause the video and think for a moment, can we simplify the square root of 33? We cannot simplify the square root of 33. There's no perfect squares that you can divide out of it. So then look at the pieces that are not under the radical. We've got -9. There's a 1 in front of this radical and an 8. Those don't have anything in common, so that is our answer. For number 4, we are actually going to change this example. I would like us to use 3x squared minus 4x minus 27 equals 2x squared plus 2x. Now the problem with this is that it's not in standard form. So pause the video if you need to get that written down. What we need to do is get this into standard form. So we are going to subtract 2x squared from both sides and subtract 2x on both sides. That will give us x squared minus 6x minus 27 equals 0. All right. Now, let's figure out our a value is 1. See how x squared has nothing in front of it? That means there's a 1 in front of it. Our b value is -6, and our c value is -27. I don't know if you can hear my daughter in the background, but she's being kind of annoying. Oops. Okay, x equals, take a moment, pause the video, plug this into the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of b, so +6 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's -6 squared. Anytime it's a negative, please put it in parentheses so that your calculator deals with it correctly. Minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. In your calculator, you can do -6 in parentheses squared, or punch in 36 if you know that -6 squared is 36, minus 4 times 1 times -27. You should get 144. And 2 times 1 is 2. So think about the square root of 144. What is the square root of 144? That's right. It's 12. It's exactly 12. We no longer need that radical. It's exactly 12. If this happens, notice there's no radical. We can actually calculate this and get 2 answers instead of -9 plus or minus the square root of 33 over 8. We can get 2 actual numbers that we could plot on a graph. So do this problem twice. Do 6 plus 12 divided by 2. And do 6 minus 12 divided by 2. 6 plus 12 is 18. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So one of our solutions is x equals 9. 6 minus 12 is -6. -6 divided by 2 is -3. Our other solution is x equals -3. So if it's radicals, simplify your radicals. If it ends up working out to a perfect whole number answer, then do the problem twice using the addition symbol once and the subtraction symbol once to get your 2 separate answers. Your assignment is on page 127, numbers 5 through 11 odd, so 5, 7, 9, 11, and number 17. There are books under your chairs or in the back of the classroom. Make sure you leave those books in the room when you leave.